When we think about our past relationships, it's tempting to see them as isolated experiences, moments of happiness or heartbreak that belong exclusively to the past. Yet, if we take a step back and consider them collectively, a different picture emerges. Your relationship history, your relationship resume, is more than a chronological list of partners and breakups. It's a reflection of your emotional life, a map of the patterns, desires, and fears that have shaped the way you love. And the first thing to understand is that this resume is not about blame, it is about awareness. Every relationship leaves an imprint, some visible, others subtle, and together they tell a story about how you engage with intimacy, vulnerability, and connection. Think about it like this. Every interaction you've had with a partner, every choice you made or avoided, carries information about who you are in love. When a relationship ends, it is easy to externalize responsibility, to say, "It didn't work because they weren't right for me," or "I made a mistake." But there is another layer, often quieter, yet profoundly influential. It is the layer of recurring patterns. Are you drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable? Do you find yourself stepping into the caretaker role, even when it drains you? Do you repeatedly enter relationships that echo unresolved conflicts from your past? These patterns are not accidents. They are encoded in your emotional history, waiting to be acknowledged. What is particularly fascinating and often surprising is how little we notice these repetitions until we pause and reflect. We may not consciously choose partners who mirror our past challenges, yet our desires and fears often guide us toward familiar dynamics. The same unresolved tension we experienced with one partner can subtly shape our next relationship. If we ignore these patterns, they continue unconsciously, like a script running behind the scenes. But when we bring them to light, they can transform from invisible forces into conscious guides. We begin to understand that our history is not a series of failures, but a reservoir of information, offering lessons about what we need, what we fear, and what we are capable of giving. Consider the emotional fingerprints that each relationship leaves behind. Some may be small, like discovering you have a particular sensitivity to criticism or that you thrive when a partner affirms your ambitions. Others are more profound. A relationship that ended with betrayal might have left you more cautious, more protective of your heart, while a deeply nurturing connection might have shown you the possibilities of trust and vulnerability. These imprints accumulate over time, creating a complex map of your relational self. Your relationship resume, in this sense, becomes a mirror. It reflects not just who you have loved, but how you have loved, what you have valued, and where you have unconsciously limited yourself. It is worth noting that this reflection is not purely about introspection for its own sake. There is a practical dimension too. When you understand your patterns, you gain a unique form of agency. You can recognize early signs in new relationships, moments when old patterns begin to emerge, moments when you feel drawn to repetition rather than growth. This awareness doesn't guarantee a perfect love life, it guarantees insight. And insight is the foundation upon which conscious choice is built. It allows you to participate fully in your relationships rather than being swept along by forces rooted in the past. And here's the crucial point. Your relationship resume is not static. It is not a permanent ledger that condemns you to repeat your mistakes. Rather, it is a living document, capable of transformation. By examining it with honesty, curiosity, and compassion, you begin to see the invisible threads that connect your past to your present. You recognize the ways your early experiences, your fears, and your desires shape your interactions, and you gain the freedom to respond differently. Awareness becomes a form of liberation, and reflection becomes a tool for evolution. So, when you look at your own relationship resume, I invite you to approach it not with judgment, but with curiosity. See it as a guide, a mirror, and a teacher. Notice the patterns that repeat, yes, but also notice the moments of courage, generosity, and love that you have offered. Understand that the choices you have made, whether they ended in heartbreak or fulfillment, carry insight about who you are and who you can become. Your past is not a prison, it is a map. And the moment you begin to read it carefully, the moment you acknowledge your own patterns, you start to reclaim your capacity to love with intention, depth, and clarity. In the end, your relationship resume is a profound invitation. It asks you to become conscious of the story you have been living, to see the invisible forces that guide your heart, and to take ownership of the patterns that shape your love. It reminds you that growth is possible, that awareness is powerful, and that the way forward begins with a simple, courageous act, paying attention to your own heart. Your relationships, past and future, deserve nothing less than that. Once we have begun to understand the echoes of our past, the next layer of insight emerges in the patterns of attraction and avoidance. Our relationship resume does more than reflect what has happened. It reveals what we are drawn to, what we fear, and how we unconsciously navigate intimacy. These patterns are rarely obvious because they operate beneath the level of conscious thought. We don't always choose partners rationally. Often we are pulled toward dynamics that feel familiar, even when they are painful, even when we know they may not serve us. This is the paradox of love. Our desires can both illuminate and entrap us. Think about the subtle ways in which attraction operates. Sometimes we are drawn to a partner's energy, their charisma, or their confidence. But deeper than that, often beneath awareness, we are drawn to traits that resonate with unresolved parts of ourselves. Perhaps the partner who seems unavailable awakens a longing we have learned to suppress. Perhaps the partner who challenges us mirrors patterns we experienced in childhood, echoing old fears or old wounds. These attractions are not random, they are relational magnets, pulling us toward the very experiences we need to understand and integrate. And yet, attraction alone does not tell the full story. Equally revealing is avoidance, the ways we pull back when intimacy intensifies, when vulnerability is required, when the stakes of connection feel high. Avoidance is often misunderstood as a lack of love, but it is more accurately a protective mechanism. It tells us about our boundaries, our fears, and the unresolved tensions that linger from past relationships. Some of us retreat when we sense closeness, not because we do not care, but because intimacy triggers a fear of loss, of suffocation, or of betrayal. Others may unconsciously push toward drama or instability because it mirrors the chaos we have learned to navigate, confusing intensity with love itself. When you examine your relationship resume with care, these dynamics become visible. Look for the recurring themes. Do you find yourself repeatedly drawn to partners who are emotionally unavailable? Do you notice patterns of withdrawal at critical moments of vulnerability? Do the same anxieties or desires appear across relationships like echoes of a deeper story you have yet to tell yourself? These patterns are not moral failures. They are data points, signals from your inner world, offering insight into your emotional wiring. And the more honest you are in recognizing them, the more agency you can claim over your choices. What makes these patterns particularly compelling is that they reveal the dance between desire and fear. Every relationship is, in some sense, a negotiation between these two forces. We desire connection, but we fear loss. We crave intimacy, but we fear exposure. We long for love, but we fear repetition of past pain. Our relationship resume maps this dance. By tracing the paths we have taken, the partners we have chosen, and the moments when we have pulled back or pushed forward, we begin to see a choreography that is uniquely our own. And within this choreography lies an opportunity, the opportunity to choose consciously rather than being swept along unconsciously. Understanding these patterns is not about denying desire or eliminating fear. It is about awareness, and through awareness, mastery. When you can recognize the tendencies that draw you toward repetition, you gain the power to pause, to question, and to decide. You can honor your desires without being enslaved by them. You can engage with intimacy without being trapped by old fears. And you can begin to cultivate relationships that do not merely reflect the past, but expand your capacity for connection, trust, and pleasure. It is also crucial to remember that patterns of attraction and avoidance are not fixed. They are adaptable. Awareness allows you to experiment with new ways of relating. You can begin to notice what excites you, what nourishes you, and what drains you. You can consciously seek partners who challenge your fears in healthy ways, who encourage your growth rather than triggering old wounds. By doing so, you shift the narrative from repetition to evolution, from unconscious survival strategies to deliberate, thoughtful choices in love. So, when you look at your relationship resume through this lens, you are invited to become a student of your own heart. Observe where your attention goes, where your fears arise, and how your choices reflect both longing and avoidance. Understand that these patterns are not mistakes. They are clues. They are the language of your inner world speaking to you, asking for recognition, compassion, and insight. And when you answer, when you act with awareness, you open the door to relationships that are not only more fulfilling, but more aligned with who you truly are and who you wish to become. Ultimately, the patterns of attraction and avoidance in your relationship resume are not chains. They are mirrors. They reflect your hidden desires, your unspoken fears, and the possibilities that lie beyond them. To pay attention is to reclaim choice. To reflect deeply is to reclaim freedom, and to act consciously is to step into a love that is no longer dictated by repetition, but guided by awareness, courage, and intention. In this way, understanding your patterns does not merely explain the past, it empowers your future. As we move deeper into understanding our relationship resume, another layer becomes impossible to ignore: the way we handle conflict and communicate in love. Our past relationships are rich with data, often unspoken, about how we navigate tension, disagreement, and disappointment. These patterns of interaction are revealing. They tell us more about ourselves than any list of partners ever could. They show us how we express anger, how we express need, how we repair or fail to repair, the inevitable ruptures that arise in intimate connection. And here lies the truth. Conflict is not a sign of a failing relationship. Conflict is a mirror, reflecting the emotional architecture of both partners, and most importantly, revealing the invisible patterns you carry from the past. When you examine your past relationships, pay attention to the recurrent dynamics. Are you quick to withdraw when disagreements arise? Do you escalate, insisting on being heard while silencing your partner's perspective? Or perhaps you find yourself capitulating, avoiding your own needs to preserve peace. Each of these responses tells a story about your internal landscape. Withdrawal may reflect a fear of being overwhelmed or rejected. Escalation may reveal unresolved anger or unmet needs from earlier experiences. People-pleasing can indicate a deeply ingrained anxiety that love is conditional, that to be loved, you must suppress your authentic self. By reading these patterns honestly, you begin to recognize the hidden scripts that have dictated your behavior across relationships. One of the most illuminating aspects of this reflection is the realization that conflict is rarely about the specific argument at hand. More often, it is about the unresolved emotional residue we carry. A disagreement over finances may actually be a reenactment of insecurity from your childhood. A recurring argument about attention or affection may echo old fears of abandonment or rejection. When you understand this, every argument becomes an opportunity, not to assign blame, but to see clearly the underlying emotional currents that shape your interactions. This is the moment when self-awareness transforms from abstract insight into practical power. Communication patterns, too, are deeply embedded in your relationship resume. Notice how you have historically expressed your needs. Do you articulate them clearly, or do you hope your partner will intuit them? Do you rely on subtle cues, testing whether your partner can read between the lines? Or do you demand and insist, expecting compliance as proof of love? These habits reveal much about your attachment style, your level of emotional literacy, and the assumptions you carry about how love must be expressed to feel real. By acknowledging these patterns, you gain the ability to communicate differently, more intentionally, and more effectively. There is also a profound philosophical truth here. Our conflict styles are a window into our deeper selves. They are where our fears and our hopes collide. They are the moments when we are most vulnerable, most reactive, and most human. And yet, they are also the moments with the greatest potential for growth. When you confront your recurring patterns of conflict and communication, you are doing more than analyzing behavior. You are understanding the architecture of your emotional life. You are learning where your defenses are, where your wounds lie, and where you have the capacity to cultivate empathy, resilience, and connection. The beauty of this insight is that it opens the door to transformation. Conflict patterns are not fixed, they are habits, and habits can be reshaped. Awareness is the first step. Noticing that you withdraw, escalate, or appease is already a form of intervention. The next step is curiosity, exploring why you respond this way, tracing it back to past experiences, and understanding the needs and fears that drive it. And finally comes action, choosing consciously to respond differently. This might mean speaking your needs even when it feels risky, listening without defensiveness, or pausing before reacting. Each act of conscious communication rewrites the script, shifting your relationship from unconscious repetition to intentional engagement. It is also worth reflecting on the relational ripple effect of these patterns. Your communication habits do not exist in isolation. They shape the entire dynamic between you and your partner. Withdrawal invites more withdrawal. Escalation invites counter-escalation. People-pleasing invites unmet resentment. By examining your relationship resume, you can see how your patterns have influenced past outcomes, and more importantly, how they may shape your future. This awareness allows you to intervene early, to break cycles, and to cultivate a relational environment that encourages safety, trust, and authentic connection. Ultimately, looking at conflict and communication through the lens of your relationship resume is an invitation to courage. It asks you to face not just the ways you have hurt or been hurt, but the subtle, often unconscious habits that have shaped your emotional life. It challenges you to take responsibility for your own patterns, while recognizing the shared responsibility inherent in intimate connection. And it reminds you that growth is not linear, that mastery is not perfection, but that each moment of conscious choice brings you closer to the relationships you want to have and the person you want to be in love. So, as you reflect on your past, notice how your conflict styles and communication habits have influenced the rhythm of your relationships. Understand that these patterns are not a verdict on your character. They are data, mirrors of your inner world. And remember, the moment you become aware of them, the moment you begin to question them, you take the first step toward transforming your relational life. Awareness breeds choice, and choice breeds freedom. Your relationship resume, in this sense, is not merely a record of what was, it is a roadmap for what can be. By confronting these patterns with courage and curiosity, you open the possibility of love that is not just reactive or habitual, but conscious, intentional, and deeply fulfilling. When we arrive at the final layer of our relationship resume, we encounter something both profound and liberating: the potential for growth, resilience, and transformation. Up to this point, we have examined the patterns of attraction, the tendencies toward avoidance, the echoes of our emotional history, and the ways we communicate and handle conflict. All of this might seem heavy, even daunting. But here is the truth. Your relationship resume is not a ledger of failures or regrets. It is a living archive, a record of your capacity to love, adapt, and evolve. It is an invitation to transform the way you engage with intimacy, not merely to understand it. Growth emerges when we approach our past relationships not with judgment or shame, but with curiosity and compassion. Every moment in your romantic history, whether a moment of bliss, betrayal, or heartbreak, carries insight about your emotional intelligence and relational maturity. Consider the relationships that challenged you, the ones that forced you to confront your fears, insecurities, or assumptions about love. These are the moments where resilience is forged. Each time you faced disappointment, yet continued to open your heart, you demonstrated courage, whether you fully recognized it or not. Your past is littered with evidence of your capacity to endure, to learn, and to rise again, and acknowledging this is as important as understanding your patterns of attraction or avoidance. Resilience, in the context of a relationship resume, is not merely about surviving heartbreak. It is about the ways you have persisted in learning how to love authentically, how to negotiate your needs, and how to offer empathy even when it was difficult. When a relationship ended in pain, it often left lessons about boundaries, communication, and self-respect. These lessons are gifts if we are willing to accept them, and they equip us to enter future partnerships with greater clarity and emotional sophistication. Each past mistake, each misstep is data, information that, when integrated, enhances your ability to choose consciously and respond intentionally in your relationships. Transformation requires a willingness to confront the uncomfortable truth. Patterns are not destiny. Just because a certain dynamic has repeated itself does not mean it must continue. You are not bound by the emotional scripts of your past. You are their author if you choose to be. Awareness is the first step toward this authorship, but reflection alone is not enough. Transformation demands action, a conscious effort to rewrite the relational habits that no longer serve you. This might mean setting boundaries that honor your emotional needs, choosing partners who challenge unhealthy patterns, or cultivating emotional practices that enhance presence and intimacy. In doing so, you move from being a participant in the unconscious repetition of your past to being a co-creator of your relational future. Importantly, transformation is not only about changing behaviors, it is about reshaping perception. It is about learning to see your relationships through the lens of growth rather than failure, to recognize opportunity rather than loss. When you begin to interpret past heartbreaks and disappointments as lessons rather than indictments, you reclaim agency over your emotional narrative. You begin to see that love is not a static state, but a dynamic process, one that involves continuous negotiation, self-reflection, and courage. Your relationship resume, in this sense, becomes a tool for intentional evolution, helping you to cultivate the capacity for deeper empathy, more authentic connection, and more conscious desire. This process of transformation is also inherently philosophical. It asks us to confront our assumptions about love, power, and intimacy. We often enter relationships with unconscious beliefs about what love should be, that it is permanent, effortless, or fair. The reality, as any seasoned observer of human relationships will tell you, is far more nuanced. Love is a practice, a negotiation, and a collaboration. It asks us to engage with our partners not as extensions of ourselves, but as autonomous beings with their own needs, fears, and histories. Your relationship resume shows you where you have succeeded in this engagement and where your unconscious scripts have limited it. Recognizing both aspects allows you to cultivate relationships that are more reciprocal, expansive, and liberating. Finally, the potential for transformation is perhaps the most empowering insight your relationship resume can provide. It reminds us that our past does not define the totality of our relational lives. It informs it. With awareness, courage, and intentionality, we can use our experiences as a guide to create partnerships that reflect the highest version of ourselves. We can learn to navigate conflict with empathy, communicate with clarity, and love with both depth and freedom. The patterns we once thought inevitable can become conscious choices. The cycles we feared repeating can become opportunities for growth. So, when you reflect on your relationship resume, I urge you to see it not as a measure of failure, but as a blueprint for evolution. Notice your past, not for what it has taken from you, but for what it has taught you. Recognize the resilience you have shown, the courage you have cultivated, and the potential that remains untapped. Each relationship, whether joyful or painful, contributes to your capacity for transformation. And the moment you embrace this truth, you step into a space of profound possibility, the possibility to love with awareness, to connect with authenticity, and to write the next chapter of your relational life with intention, clarity, and courage. Your relationship resume is not a record of endings. It is a roadmap to beginnings.